Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for having me so much. My name is Nella Piatek. So like Daniel said, I'm a designer and researcher studying the evolution of the human in conjunction with digital technology, alongside the implications and the values that this entanglement conjures. So my work explores anthropological futures, socio-technical imaginaries, where poetic introspection and rituals are used to touch upon the themes of faith, impermanence, and the sense of self in the digital landscape. So I'm also a cyber witch. I identify as one, as I work with and through digital material to reflect on how our bodies and identities are becoming enmeshed with digital technologies, and how those can allow us to manifest our hopes, intents, and values. So as I'm here to talk about hyperbodies, the first obvious question that I asked myself was, how can we think of hyperbodies? How can hyperbodies individually and collectively collapse fixed forms of locations, biologies, and identities? And how can explorations of hyperbodies be useful in critical creative practice? So as I will attempt to answer some of these questions in today's discussion, I would also like us to think how some of these othered cosmic or hybrid bodies can view the digital as a sanctuary, an emancipatory space, a place of refuge, and a safe space for self-exploration. So I will show some of examples of how research can be thought through critical artistic practice, where speculative modes of digital belonging and experiencing of cyberspace are explored, and bodies find emancipation in manifesting as digital fragmentations or avatars, which precariously exist as part of, but also as part, yet apart from society. So by no means is this just an artist talk. However, through my own work and reflection, I would like to show you the omnipresence of hyperbodies in existing critical practice and the limitless transfigurations that can be explored. So as I'm identifying myself as a cyber witch, I see myself and my many artistic incarnations as a hyperbody, a cyborg transgressing the physical limitations of my flesh and my body, and existing in the entanglement where it blends with the physical materiality of digital technologies, as well as its digital extension. So I would like to think about the hyperbody through the different incarnations of myself, starting from the ghostly desktop flaneur to the organic cyborg and to the decimated pixel flesh. So, however, I would also like to provoke you to think about what kind of hyperbodies, hybrids, or cyborgs do you yourself already embody? And how might they evolve in the coming future? So let's begin. I would like to start with the digital native. So exponential technological progress changed the way we create and upkeep relationships. It has an effect on our values and our hybridization with a digital landscape of information and communication technologies. So we already have generations who remember nothing else than life intertwined with the internet, often referred to as the digital native by scholars such as Legacy Russell or Matt Hugh, for example. For the digital native, the virtual and the real are inseparable, as being takes place within this blurred reality between the physical and the digital. In this hybrid environment, digital technology is a structure of perception, maybe an affordance that impacts our perceptions of self and being in that world. So Benjamin Bratton also argues that we need a sort of togetherness that does not rely on presence and instead leaves the edifice on conventional interaction design. So I urge designers to work through current assemblages and activate new architecture of in-betweenness and blended realities, moving towards emancipatory practice where we defy oppressive systems, normative structures of being, and explore desires for new modalities. Whoop. So I would like to start with the first project, Into the Ethereal. This interactive fiction is placed in a post-internet future where servers of smaller social platforms, such as Tumblr, are shut down as a result of an oligopoly of larger platforms. This consequently causes archives of certain marginalized online communities to be completely wiped out. As a response, the displaced cyber witch decides to cease lamenting over the destruction of her communities, and she buries her history and practice into a haunted file system in an attempt to create an archive that transgresses time. Her mechanical voice permeates the digital landscape, left behind, ghostly and hidden behind digital infrastructure. But we can ask ourselves, how is the body present despite its bodiless voice? How does the aesthetic use conjure up a body? So by hijacking the file system of a computer, the cyberwitch attempts to reinvent the worlds we occupy to navigate personal and collective crises. Video, collage, sonic messages explore rituals and behaviors that could emerge if human attitudes and views towards digital architectures became more spiritual, sensuous, and emotional. Imagining scenarios where we view the internet and digital technologies as our appendages or extensions of ourselves, just like our bodies, where they require maintenance and affection. So here the digital and the internet is an infrastructure that acts as a passageway to new forms of communicating and connecting. Thus, as we enter the system, enter the ethereal, we're opening a technological rite of passage. New ways of communicating, creating a sense of togetherness are forged through digital traces such as narrations, virtually materialized memories, and stories of emerging types of communities that now no longer exist. Here the bodiless hyperbody becomes a place of immense intimacy that vessels the act of realizing oneself and offering the possibility to obscure the body to surface the voice. The voices we hear in this imaginary choose to embody the hyperbody for collective emancipation from oppressive systems, as it has the capacity to blur certain constructs of the body, such as race, age, gender, and can render it limitless, offering liberation from constructs that may be hard to strip away in the IRL world. Creating ambiguous states of presence opens discourse about how our bodies are changing and becoming abstracted in the virtual landscape. So, Into the Ethereal was an attempt to create this artificial in-betweenness of presence and absence of a body, to allow audiences to experience the presence as unknown, dishabituated, and from ordinary views of technology. With the attempt to disassemble the interfaces and protocols of existing technology, such as file systems or computer viruses, voice notes, or even emojis, the contemporary landscape is denaturalized. Current assemblages are seen through the lens of the other. I believe that this can open discussions about how a hyperbody can become an active and participatory position, partially grounded in existing assemblages, yet not accepting them as one-dimensional. With the growth in scale and consequently the socio-political entanglement, the internet shifts from a solely technological landscape to a cultural one, an ecosystem allowing societies to develop within, where belonging can take place by personifying digital material and negotiating its function. So Donna Haraway has a decades-old question: why should our bodies end at the skin? It remains endlessly relevant in our postmodern time, with new technologies bringing in further debates around the ideas of bodies and boundaries, the performance and the capabilities of the human subject, but also the understanding of what really counts as a human. The theory of posthumanism suggests that our bodies and experience of our environment are progressively changed by the intermeshing of us and our technology. But the interesting thing about skin in the digital context, when it is attempted to be translated, rendered, or created in digital matter, it becomes intersectional with fashion, blurring the boundaries between what is inherent to a body and what can be curated. So with the next project in mind, I would like to bring to attention the notion of human hybridization into hyperbodies, which is not only based on this liminal existence between the URL and the IRL, but also on observation of how contemporary pieces of technology become physical or digital extension of our body. So with my smartphone closely pressed against my body, a cord strung from it to a power bank, placed in front of a laptop which possesses my entire career and personal life on a disk, connected through cables around my body. So this spectacle is happening in the physical space, so I can find sanctuary in the digital one. With our modern technologies, we have the possibility to integrate ourselves into a communication system which offers us a way to connect beyond our fleshiness. So Control Art to Reflesh is a speculative ritual where a cyber witch reflects on her entanglement with digital technology. She mourns the implications of this enmeshment and lastly rejects the techno-consumptive view. So here, cyber witchcraft acts as a catalyst for reflecting on digital technologies and our attitudes towards them. The figure of the cyber witch becomes a very crucial figure in my practice, a persona that is embodied by a performer to discuss the experience of being in the digital and using that experience to reflect on her identity and the capitalist and colonialist operations within cyberspace. The cyber witch likens her body, her flesh, to nature and technology, hoping to transgress the meaning of what flesh is. As to her, it doesn't stop at the human body. Flesh is the raw material that composes a living or functioning material. The realization that human bodies, nature, and technology share the same elements and natural cycles of decay brings her to question what actually is flesh. So the project is a performance of a speculative funeral where the rejection of techno-consumptive view of society takes the form of a self-destruction at the very end. Control Art takes you through a story starting from birth and ending at death as an individual undergoes a realization that humans and nature have already been made cyborgian by the exploitative longing to transcend corporeality. The work is a journey through birth and affection, evolution and growth, and then helplessness and despair. It explores the affective and emotional relationship between a human and digital technology and acts as a cry to see technology as flesh. After all, it is made of the same material as our bodies, as Mother Earth. Thus, how is its flesh any less worth of consideration? Such self-reflection offers insights into the fantasies, the desires, and the anxieties that the experience of cyberspace has conjured, and allows for designers to reflect on its sociocultural implications. So, as a critical designer and cyber witch, I aim to practice the future in the now, testing alternatives of being and imagining futures with new social values and desires, mediated by different modalities, and questioning the potential social relationships that can emerge in current technological assemblages. So I often use this term modality, and it refers to a particular way of something existing or being experienced. And I think it's essential to consider the different forms of being and experiencing across a multiplicity of bodies, voices, and perspectives. So digital avatars altering our sense of self has been a long and prevalent discussion point within the context of hyperbodies. However, with Series 00222, the next project I would like to introduce, I focused on the process of translating your existing physical body and rendering it as a digital avatar. Precisely, scanning it from a physical environment and placing it in a landscape of augmented reality, when then it's stretched, optimized, and translated, where it can be avatarized to reflect what a body really feels to oneself. Explores the entanglements of the metaverse and the meat space to reflect on how augmented reality filters can become a means of connecting with archived digital identities encapsulated within this digital media. So this interactive experience through a sonic narrative and augmented reality filter opens a communication portal between a visitor and a cyber witch avatar. So the audience then takes part in exploring an intimate story as the cyber witch reflects on cyborgism, the archive as her sanctuary, and her views on technology as being spiritual. So as audiences meet Xeris, a digital fragmentation of an already then deceased cyber witch, who decided that a digital capsule would be a more suitable gravestone for her body. Upon activating the AR filter, participants place a portal in their immediate space and have the opportunity to gradually navigate through the different sections of the cybertome, curated by the cyber witch. You're invited to listen to her last words, the description of her entanglement with digital technology, and her feelings about it. So through this critical digital experimentation, we explore the fantasies, again, the desires and anxieties that the experience of recent crises and technological progress has conjured, and we translate it to public-facing interventions that reach out from the academy into the world through the gallery or popular media. So experimentations with AR or VR are interesting in the investigation of how these emerging technologies provide space for critical and creative recordings of the digital experience, and how that promotes practice that challenges the restricted visions of futures or techno-capitalist determinisms. So the experience of the self as other in these digital spaces can be quite uncanny, intriguing, and emancipatory. As Xeris, I play with my body as a tool for storytelling and for externalizing my feelings visually. It becomes an opportunity to recognize myself within digital material and to explore the reflections of my digital presence and identity. Therefore, the vast array of digital softwares, landscapes, or even bodies can become a tool for us to push boundaries of the body, imagine extensions of gesture beyond normative human-to-human interrelations, or reimagine spaces that are commonly known to us, perhaps as sanctuaries for newfound desires. So just like Instagram filters in Xeris 00222, they're giving a newfound meaning, that of a sanctuary, a digital gravestone or archive, a sacred space for rest, for the bodies that want to commemorate the digital lives they have led, or the opportunities that digital technology has provided them with. This is another small snippet, but I'm not going to go too in-depth into that. So this sort of act of rearranging and adding and subtracting from original functions of digital technologies as a means of pushing boundaries within the away from keyboard world, as Russell calls it, can be likened to theories that some of you may be already familiar with, such as the remix or the cut. And the manipulation of existing assemblages and networks to imagine corporate realities or values is also equally important to Kemper and Zielinska, which propose the cut, a creative incision that is also a decision. So that alters meaning of these technological landscapes. So as hyperbodies may need to create a space within existing entanglements of digital interaction, the cut or the remix could become a valuable method to imagine and for imaginings and fictionings of future blended realities. So theorists such as UC Parika, who call for imaginings of new histories of the suppressed, of neglected and forgotten voices of media history, that do not always fit with the rationalized and standardized image of media historical progress. Joanna Zielinska and Sarah Kemper seek to promote the invention of different forms of engagement with media, and Legacy Russell urges to find new conceptual containers for liberation. So I believe it is crucial to keep in mind these theorists when asking the question, once the entanglement of our bodies with digital technology becomes inevitable, how can we use that to our own liberation? How can we manipulate the role that our bodies play? So as critical and creative practitioners, I believe it is important that we keep rethinking and reframing current assemblages of digital technology that surround us and the implications of these digital networks, to reflect, self-reflect, and so to sit with them rather than focus on how technological progress can expand and extend our bodies. I believe it's important to consider how individuals such as digital natives, which I have mentioned earlier, are already thinking through identities and bodies within existing systems and consequently shaping new values and desires for the future. So the hyperbody to me, is negotiated between the digital and the physical, the metaverse and the meat space, generating architecture for hybrid environments and modalities where it pushes the boundaries of presence. We're all witnesses to the evolution of art in conjunction with new technologies, how it is created, how it is shared and accessed by audiences beyond the conventions of the art world. Each new digital technology is another creation that springs many conversations about its effect on our perception and on the self. Its rapid introduction, the democratization of it, its evolution, which shifted from a solely technological landscape to a multi-layered cultural one. So with additions of new layers of culture, emerge new desires, come new interpretations, new critiques and reflections of their implications. I think that the democratization and proliferation of digital technology that we have seen in artistic discussions and their implications, and how they affect the self and society, and how technology itself plays a role in these sort of mediations. So Henry Bergson argues that if dominant modes of knowledge are incapable of envisioning the absolutely new, maybe other modes of knowing, other forms of thinking need to be proposed. So looking into the bodies and the worlds that are being generated in today's digital affordances or digital technologies can provide insight into how social value is produced and mediated with the democratization of technology. Art, design, and fashion in this context is deeply political. It is demanding action by making possible futures visible whilst reflecting on them. So it calls for a need for experimentation with new ways of developing the new and distinctive worldviews that might include different beliefs, different values, ideals, hopes, and fears from what we have today. So it kind of becomes a room for investigating the implications of already existing design outcomes, in particular the digital production of space, and reflecting upon them to discuss what they provide, how this provision changes our perception of self and our relationship with others, to later question what more could we desire. So with the continually expanding digital landscape, self-reflection is necessary for the examination of socio-technical and emotive unintended consequences that this spatiality of cyberspace produces. So I would like to bring this talk to an end with a sort of poetic provocation, perhaps a call for action, one might say. So my own presence is constantly developing and changing as I explore what I want it to be in the ever-changing world of progress. With my corporeal fluidity transgressing geographic and virtual spaces, I review myself through these boundaries as a site for grounding myself. I already exist as a hyperbody, manifesting my ghostly presence and absence, revisiting my past selves, and looking into the future of my relationships with or without bodily proximity. Let's perceive these liminal interactions as a place for limitless opportunity and defiance of current forms of interaction, rather than accept it solely and only as a progress of being. Thus, let's consider how the definitions and conditions of being mediated through these blended realities that can never be just virtual or just physical. I would like to ask us to seek out these hybrid spaces and the hybrid bodies we could embody, finding new ways to self-define and unsettle the comforting certainties of mediascapes, to promote the invention of different forms of engagement with media that incorporate our own reforming visions. So, with that said, what kind of hyperbodies, hybrids, or cyborgs do you yourself already embody? And I hope that gives you something to think about. Thank you.